I ran out to the shop, put the new inner tube in because that's been bugging me, and I think we're ready to finally put the wheel on for the last time. The only thing that I gotta remember, we got one side done. It's kind of a pain doing this up on the bench, in all honesty, but we'll compress this and get the wheel in place. Make sure your brake plate is mounted where it's supposed to be, like so, onto the grooves. And then the front fender shares some of these axle mounts. So we'll have to figure out exactly how we want to go about doing this. I don't know if I have the other 10 mil for the front. Let's see how skinny my hands are here. I don't know where to put you guys. Too much stuff. Yeah, that'll work. So let me drop this other little 10 mil for the fender bolt. If I can get one of those in, then we can dig out hardware here in a minute. Oh, I think I see one right here, actually. Should work. So the fender shares the axle mount when we go to install this. So we'll get those on first. Let's do one side at a time here. And then typically you do want to compress the forks down onto the axle just to line all of that up, but for right now, let's get one side set. Come over to the other side. I'll hold there. Where is my, there it is. Losing everything. So, fender, washer, axle nut. And we'll do a final compress on this in a minute. So these are all the way down. That'll at least allow me to get this set up. That. That. Then the fender gets pinched in. Eating cables right now. These inner fender ones go in and then rotate up. So, got one fender bolt. Still need to find the other one. I thought I had it, but I think the one I grabbed is the wrong size. And then these go. Oh, there's not a lot of room here. Come on. There we go. And then we'll just need a 10 mil wrench. I'll show you guys closer what that looks like here in a second. So you got your fender nut there for the side supports. There's one there and one there. It shares the retainer for the brake plate as well. But just like that. We find another 10 mil, we'll get the other fender on, we'll button all that up and lock that down. Then we got a complete roller again. Not that we didn't have one, but the inner tube popped and it's just been a flat tire for a while. So fresh tube, for whatever reason, I don't know why that broke. And then we gotta put the brake stuff on in a little while. So let me find some hardware, get this locked down, and then we'll be back. Front wheels on, with the fender mounted. Had a slight issue on that. I had to move the braces to the inside. I think they go to the outside, or they're supposed to, but not a lot of clearance. Apparently this tire is a little bit bigger than the one I wanted. Thought it was the same size, but the sidewall's a little bit wider. Looks good on there, but we do not have a lot of clearance on the fender. And this one, the two that go into that front fork mount are slightly tweaked. So if I have to pull that front fender off, I will. I got a zip tie here for now. That's not gonna be permanent, but until I tweak the fender. The zip tie, just holding this over a tiny bit to the left side, and the wheel spins just fine. The brakes don't have the pads hooked up, so there's a little bit of brake drag on there that I got to adjust once I get it working, but we have brakes, or we have a wheel. It's just the brake pad's just grazing it, but they're not really fully seated. I haven't locked that lever, so I'm not worried about that noise at this juncture. But front end is done. Now I gotta figure out what I want to do next. I think we're done with this on the bench for now. I'll put it back up there in a little bit. It's nice, it's light and easy to move. But I need some bench space because we're gonna go through the levers. I don't know how much of this I'm gonna film. I might walk you through part of one. Maybe I'm not gonna walk you through any of them until I get going on this because it's extremely tedious. Just trying to line up all the springs and things. Let me see if I gotta make a little pad here. But we're kind of down to wiring and cable routing and things. So we got a ton of stuff in here. I just bagged all of the controls. So we got springs and things and bolts and switches that we're not gonna use because we're not doing brake lights. Little lever perch things, adjusters, spacers, nuts, hardware, bolts, throttle. All sorts of little stuff, which sucks. Then in the other bin, we got the actual housings that I need. Where's all my stuff? All right. All of these go back together somehow. Let's see how this goes. So we got our throttle housing. The throttle, kind of a neat design here. It's got a little slider piece here that drops in, Kevin, here. And then as you roll the throttle, this basically slides on an angle through here, and I'll show you how this works. But this piece goes in here, which I messed up and didn't mask off, so I gotta get some of this powder out of that channel. Wow. Leave it to the powder coater guy to mess up a powder coating job. Oh well. Fixable. You just gotta file some of the powder down in there because that's gotta slide through there, and then the same thing on the levers. Just going through all of this stuff. So I'm gonna throw you guys on the tripod, walk you through, not all of it because it's just tedious and boring, but basically we got these little bushing pins that ride in here. 2 coats of powder on these. It's all candy, so it's a little thick. So I got an 8mm drill bit, and just by hand, I'm just walking this through. That'll clear up whatever excess I need on here like that. And then our slider pins fit in. They're tight, but it's a bushing, so you don't want them real loose and sloppy. Then once they get to this level, where I got the bushing already installed, this will drop into here, like so, and that's your pivot point. And we'll drop the hardware in. I don't remember which one's which here. What is this? This is the throttle side. Throttle side here. Yeah, so that'll go like this. And then same thing. I'll just be running drill bits through, clearing some of this stuff out because I didn't plug all of these. They're not threaded, but quick hand file with a drill bit, so this should be like a 6 or 7mm. Through here, this drops down and then it gets bolted together. Let me prep these, and then when it's ready to final assemble, we'll throw it back together, or I'll bring you guys back. Okay, so lever, spring. I think this is how this goes. Your spring's gonna go in here, drop your bushing in, like so. Then, when you go to install this, you want to put a little bit of spring tension back here. And then this should drop in, just like that. It's going to be fighting you, but that spring will drop in, then you get your bolt in, and that's going to kick this back. Where's my hardware? So, spring tension on, like so, and that That should drop into there. Hold it steady. Oh. I hate spring things. Just like that. Come on. Get your screw through. Like that. And now you got spring action lever. Let me put the bolt on the bottom. Not going to do a final snug on this, but that's how that goes. So one lever is done. This is the throttle side. Did I put that lever on backwards? I did. Okay, so that's how to do it. If you notice, there is a little bit of a gap here. It's got like a slight curve to it. This one's curved up. I really don't want that, so I'm going to do the same thing with this lever now, since I messed that one up. Great. So much fun, you can do it twice. So in reverse order, if you're taking it apart, it's going to be the same thing here, but I'll switch this over to the other housing. If you notice, there's two long ones, one short one. The short teal lever is the clutch. And this one, come on. It's going to try and fight you with the threads a little bit because it is under spring tension. So we'll pop this out. Hopefully nothing goes flying. You can hear that spring pop back. So that lever will actually go here. Wasn't so bad the first time. There we go. So now, oh. Alright, I'm messing up everything here, but that's fine. Let's do it again, since I just set up the clutch lever for the starter clutch instead of this. Spring goes in, bushing goes in. Like so. Huh, no wonder it was so tight. Wrong bushing, wrong part. Story of my life today. They look about the same, but this one is a tiny bit smaller. So we'll get the right one here. It's a good idea to do these one at a time too. And come over here to the brake lever, or the throttle perch. Wind up your spring. Come on. Hopefully you guys can see that. This basically needs to jut into that section. When you push this in, and if you come at it too far out, it ends up binding back there, and it doesn't actually disengage. There we go, just like that. Don't let go, don't let go, don't let go. Stab yourself with a screwdriver, trying to line everything up. Come on. If you got a buddy, phone a friend. Makes this much easier. Why is this fighting me so bad? This one's fine. Are these different? No. It's so close. So close. Come on. Come on, you. Oh, there we go. Lots of spring tension. Sorry, that's not the most exciting video. We'll probably be trimming a lot of that, but there we go. That's through. Stress full part over on one piece. So now this lever is actually coming up the way it's supposed to. Snaps back the way it's supposed to, so that one is done. The nut doesn't have to go on right this second. Let me finish cleaning up and powdering the rest, or cleaning up the drill bit through all of these just to knock off whatever excess is in here. And then we will come back when I'm done with this, because this is boring. And I imagine there's going to be a lot of swearing. We got all the clutch lever, starter clutch here, sprung, brake levers sprung. Those are all good. I got the nuts on, but I didn't tighten them down. I can finalize that later. Now we're onto the throttle. I told you guys I messed up and coated this intersection. Wasn't really thinking about it, but here's how this throttle works. It's kind of unique, but this is the throttle side. There's a little detent here. This drops in here. Now, the nice thing about the Italian bikes is typically they just use a pinch bolt to run your throttle adjuster. So I'll have a thing on the carb slide part, the little ball end that drops into the slide normal. And then on the other end, instead of just having a pinch thing, it's threaded. So we'll go over that later. But essentially, this is the slide for your throttle actuator. The grip will stay in place, but as you turn open throttle, this pulls through the housing. So the throttle cable will run in here, goes through here and gets pinched by a bolt here. So this is the part that I powdered and just kind of grinding it away a little bit. It's really just the end part. The middle is perfectly fine. So we'll throw a little bit of grease in there before we do the final assembly too. But essentially how this works is that's going to sit in the track on the slide. Throttle comes in and engages that right there. So take your slot, angled slot, roll that in over the little nub on that slide adjuster, like so. And then basically push it down and in, drop it back in. So when it's hooked up, if you guys, hopefully you can see this, this is throttle closed, throttle open. It basically just pulls that all the way through. And as of right now, this whole thing could slide out. But if we pull this back a little bit, there's a slotted groove right here next to the grip. And there's a threaded spot right here. You got this really tiny, weird little nut, or bolt rather, small flathead. Drop this in, tighten this up. It doesn't have to be crazy tight because all that is a guide to hold that throttle in place. Now the throttle's locked. So, kind of a neat little design. I do like these ones on the Italian ones. So look at this slot here. That's your throttle pull. So when we go to hook this all up, we have our cable adjuster. So this will thread right into here. And then when we go to the throttle cable side on the bike, a little bit later, you'll see the end of it. But basically you slide the cable in, no cable stop or no NARP on the end. Bare cable slides through, and then I should have a little tiny screw here somewhere. Did I lose it? Come on. Did I really lose that? Little tiny pinch screw goes up from the bottom and pinches the cable right there. And that is your entire throttle assembly. So let me figure out where that went. I thought I heard something drop. All right. Oh, there it is. So this will basically put your cable in, set your preload tension on that. And then you just got this little screw at the bottom. This will snug down and pinch the cable in place. So then when you roll your throttle back and forth, throttle opens, throttle closes. Kind of a neat little design. I know it's like a little more detailed for most people that don't care, but they're kind of a pain to get taken apart once you get the springs and nuts and all the other parts off. Brake cables, pretty similar to like a Harley setup, if you're familiar with those. You got one slotted end, one rounded end. Run your cable through, drop that in. The fat side goes out. This drops in here, holds the cable, and then you can do your adjusters here, which I don't have on this. Sometimes they're thread in. This one does not have those. But we got 3 of these for each of the cables. And there's that. Lots of pieces that aren't going to go back on because we're not running brake switches. We're simplifying most of that. And then for your pinch bolt on the handlebar, it is 2 pieces. It's not just a bolt that goes through here. There's this little machined, tapered, chamfered bushing. This drops in, and then when you tighten this down, that bushing basically fills this gap here and pinches onto the handlebar. I think that's about it for now. I will be back later on, and then maybe we can start throwing these on the actual bike. We got all the switch housings and cables on and roughly routed. I'm doing it on the floor. I didn't mind up here for this part, and I had to wrestle some of these on, grease them, and slide it over on the bars. Now we're on to the brakes. So the back brake I actually have done. I didn't film it because I was working behind the chain guard cover, and you can't really see it, but I can show you how to do it on the front. This one, I left the adjuster for the new cable in here too, so that changes a little bit on this side, but where's the little pin? Where did I just lose the parts? There it is. So before we get rolling on this and do any adjustments, first thing I'm going to do is get this upper section set up. So basically, can you guys see that? Here is your clutch cable or brake cable. This will come through, and these are the little clip fittings. So pull your brake cable in, drop that in through there, then this goes to there, and you got a big circle, little circle. Big circle goes towards the outside. That's going to catch the barrel on the end of the cable. That'll drop in just like that. And then this little adjuster is optional. I don't know if I'm going to have enough room to use it. I'd like to, but we'll see what happens when we get down to the bottom of the bike. Then I ran them down through the triple trees over, and then I'm using the little spring clip. Let's go down. Spring clip on the fork rubber boot mount, which gets us down to about here, and it is pretty low, or pretty short right now. So on these brake lever adjusters, I'll show you guys what this is. It's basically a carriage bolt with a through hole. I like to start them on the cable first. Then we'll pull up the slack here. And hopefully that's enough room. It's going to be close if I keep that adjuster. So right now there's not really much meat coming through on the back side of the cable, but that's okay. Just want to get this kind of queued up so we can adjust as needed. There's an adjuster up here, so I can thread this in and get myself a little bit more cable too. Hopefully you guys can see that behind the fork. So we have an adjustment there, and then we have the adjustment up top. And now you can see the little bit of cable coming through the back side of this. So what I like to do is catch it, pull this through, and then there's not going to be a ton of adjustment here, but we'll leave this one on the loose side. Then you can see how far out that arm swings. What I want to do now is basically adjust the brake to where it's starting to drag. So what I'm going to do now, slide this up. I'm going to put the vice grips on the end of the cable. I try to stay off the very end because they fray pretty easily. But we're going to pull that down, lift this up, and then we're going to kind of set tension. So there's full lock, well, full engagement rather. So I'll grab this right here. That's going to flex back just a bit. And we'll snug this down. And that should be a pretty good starting ballpark. Especially with the adjuster up top. Just like that. Now, hopefully, no drag there. It's hard because the wheel is hitting the ground right now. Let me see if I can grab a 2x4 or something for that center stand. Gonna have to extend that a little bit at a later point, but there we have it. So it's dragging a little bit, which means we're a little on the tight side. The adjuster over here, it's all brand new stuff, so it's got seat and wear in, but I got about 3 threads left here, so if need be, we can drop this down a tiny bit more. Maybe I'll do that right now. A couple turns at least, just to free up a tiny bit more slack. That should be good right there. Let's go back to the kickstand. Yeah, it's already feeling better. Grab the brake and she stops. Oh, it's cramped in here. I really need to finish cleaning. It's just crappy outside and cold, so I don't want to open the garage. But we did a lot in that last little bit off camera. So I got the housings on, back brakes hooked up, front brakes hooked up. Starter clutch is working as it should. So we got all the cables kind of run. This one I left a little long. The stock rear brake cable, this one down here, is pretty pinched in that housing, so I recycled one that I had up at the shop for now. It would look a little bit cleaner if I ran it through here, but it's 4 inches too short to make that work. So we'll just do a cluster and these will all get zip tied. And then the only thing left is the throttle cable, which has a barrel end on it. All we got to do is cut this barrel off, slide it right through that fancy housing down here, and then tighten up that set screw, and cables are done. But I'm not in a rush on that part yet. That'll be the last one we do, because I might shorten up this cable too, because this is the longest of them. We're landing roughly right there, so I might take some off on the cable housing. But now we're pretty much ready to do final assembly. So clutch cable and all of those things are hooked up. What do we have left? Wiring. Final mount the coil, and then we can start throwing some panels back on. I still got to do the motor, but trying to figure out what I need to do to get it done minus the wiring component. So I think we're ready to throw it back on the bench and clean this up and put it back up in the air so I'm not wrestling around on the ground. We're gonna mess around with some wires. I know it's not the most exciting video in the world, but I kind of explained most of it. Here is what we are dealing with. We have a black wire frame ground and a blue wire. I am going to ground this. I just took a flap disc and sanded off the powder right here. This is going to be our grounding surface. So these two are going to get bridged and looped there. And then I have a yellow wire that's going to go to the regulator that I will not have until tomorrow, but it should be here tomorrow. So then we'll do the regulator from the magneto into the regulator, and then the output wire will run straight up to the headlight and then to the tail light. So that'll be one single wire circuit, so it will only be a permanently on headlight and tail light. Those will be on all the time, no switches, no nothing. And then the black wire here is just going to be run up to the coil. So black is the coil, blue is your brake light circuit, which will kill spark if you got a dead bulb. So we'll tap these two together, loop them right here, and then the side cover will pinch that to ground. Everything underneath, there's a cover that goes on all of this. That'll loop all of these parts down. Then we got a little bracket here that's gonna pinch off the rest of these wires. So it'll be a nice clean setup in theory. So we'll get this laid out, have this come up and in. push this back up to hold the wire in place. So really not a lot of wiring at all. Black to the coil, blue and other black ground here. We'll just kind of loop back in underneath the frame. So this will go here. Oh, eyelet ring here. That'll go there like that. And then we just got these two wires. One spark, one light. Does not get any better than that. We'll be back when I'm done with that. Long term, we got the M6 bolts on the cover. So this is going to be our ground. But I was thinking about it. I don't necessarily want to... I can steal this one out of the horn. I don't want to lock that down for the cover. I don't want to have to pull the cover off a bunch of times while we're trying to tune and adjust timing on this. I haven't even touched the points. Probably should have cleaned those up, actually. That would have been smart, huh? But I'm just going to put a temporary shorty little bolt in here. It's not fitting proper, so we're just going to make this one work. I don't mind adjusting some of the electrical connections later, but if I can get a temporary ground on this, we will be in much better shape. We could technically actually check this for spark right now as well. I don't have a spark plug, but it should still be making spark already. So, remember on the Harley, that magneto and all the problems I had with that? This is pretty much the same thing. I never tested it, but the inside of this points plate was extremely clean, so I'm not overly concerned at this juncture. But that grounded and looped right there should be all we need for spark once I run a connection from here, from the black wire up to the coil. So we're just going to leave that as a temporary for now, and then we'll reground it once the cover actually goes back on. Because that will allow me to adjust timing on the stator without having to pull off the entire cover. So there's one. Let me grab some wire. Just need to make a little jumper from here up to the coil. We'll trim this other side here in a minute. Hopefully I got some more connectors because I forgot I brought my electrical stuff to the shop. And now we are slim pickings for, wait, maybe I have some in the other bin, the car stuff. Come on, come on, come on, come on. I know you guys can't see, I'm literally just looking for connector here. All right. A little smaller than the ones I want, but this should work just fine. So I need a male. Come on, female. Saves me a drive. All right, so we're going to use the weathered connectors, the coated ones. I'll set up the jumper first on one side, and then we'll figure out where it actually has to go. All right, so this will drop onto the coil. And then from the coil, we just need to come down to here. So maybe I'll loop that behind the spark plug wire. Doesn't have to be pretty because there is a cover that's gonna take up all of the hideousness of anything in this general area. So black wire to there. We don't need it that long, so I'll trim this down right here. And then I want a quick, I don't need a quick disconnect here. We'll just do a connector. Not my favorite, not the right way to do it, but will work just fine. One. There's two. Just like that. Do I have a spark plug? If this plug's any good. Definitely not the right one for this bike, but do we get any spark? This is how you test the magneto, I guess. Yeah, it's sparking. I don't know if that's showing up, but I am getting spark. I don't want to go too crazy with this. Come on, stay put. I also don't want to shock myself. You guys see that? Should we go lights off mode? Let's see. Is that gonna help? Look at that. I can't believe that's actually working. I didn't even clean these points. Cool. That's good enough for me. If it's sparking by hand on quarter rotations at a time, that tells me that that is good to go. So, we are good there. Obviously, the lighting stuff is going to have to wait since I'm waiting on the regulator, but that means the coil's good, points are good. I have almost lost an angle grinder blade. So we're good to go. I guess we can run the wiring connectors from the taillight up to the headlight, but that's the first time I ever checked this for spark, and she is sparking, and it's nice and strong. That's a crappy old Harley plug. Long reach. Show that plug, but she sparks. So fresh plug on there will be fine, and then we're gonna have to get into heat ranges because I don't know what it's gonna want. But that's good. That is a huge weight lifted off of my shoulders. So now, maybe I'll run the headlight wire and the taillight wire, get that set up because it's all gonna bridge here somewhere, and then I gotta figure out where I'm gonna mount that voltage regulator. I might have to drill something here and maybe I'll mount it behind this plate. Just a little bolt right here. Or I could get fancy and put it up here, but then it's a longer stretch for wires. Time will tell on that one since I don't have the parts. That's really gonna dictate how that's gonna get laid out. I also have these two little dead spots from the oil injection that we're not running. So, that's pretty much it. Let me get this headlight wired up, nothing fancy there. Basically, I'm running one wire from the taillight up through the fender. There's little clips in here through this hole, and that'll come up here. One down from the headlight, which will drop down through here somewhere. Maybe follow one of these, this clutch cable or something. Or I can come up under the tank, maybe. Decisions. So here is the taillight assembly. It's a two-piece. So this is what mounts to your fender. This, with the light bulbs, is what drops on here, and then there's a 3-pin out set of connectors. The middle connector is going to be your ground. I wasn't sure, but I just started looking at it and got this bridge here where it goes to the side of the bulb socket, which means that's your common ground between the two. So I will need a ground wire, and then we're going to ground this right to the actual mounting bolt. So I'm not going to have two wires running forward. It works better if you run it that way. It's a more true ground. All of them should go to the same leg, but I don't care that much. So we're running the ground directly to the mounting plate, and then the hot side is, how does this pin out work? This right one goes to the tail light or brake light, one of the two. Doesn't matter. I only need one. This is a 5 watt, this is a 10 watt. So this is the brake light. I'm going to run it with the brake light on all the time because they're not going to be that bright anyway. So hot wire to the right side, ground to the middle. I put the taillight into the housing. I got the bolt in here. Hopefully this will stay put. This is not perfect. It's supposed to have a little detent to hold the bolt. Ran the wires through the upper hole on the back, so that's hooked up. And then that short middle one is going to go to the ground, which is basically just going to bolt on or land on the bolt that we're going to jam through here, like so. And nothing to wash out of the back, and hopefully this thing will stay put. Not overly optimistic. I think there's supposed to be one more bolt on here somewhere too, but I'm not buying a new taillight at this juncture. We got more important things to do than taillight wires. And if I hate the stock look of the taillight, then we'll get something a little bit cooler, cleaner. I usually use little trailer lights from the auto parts store. in this garage. Tripping over everything. It's not good. All right. Come on. There we go. Couple threads is all you need for now. And of course I'm using a 1/4-20 instead of the metric stuff just because that's all I have. So let me grab an actual socket. Too short for a short reach, too long for a deep reach. This is way easier to do before the tire's on. We'll get there eventually. You don't want to go hulking on this because it is hooked up to a plastic housing. There we go. Taillight. So here's our hot lead wire that's dangling out here. Hopefully you guys can see that, but we got the ground. So we are all set up on there. I always thought that that lower bracket's supposed to bolt on here somewhere too, but we'll look into that. We got busted parts, so that is what it is. So now I can run these wires up the detent. If you cared enough, you might want to actually coat these things too, but I do not. This will not really be seeing any nighttime use, I don't think. So I got the little tabs welded on the inside here. Just put them in, bend the tab up, hold the wire in place. You're good to go. That gets me up to the front wheel, and now I gotta fish this through right here. Just like that. And that is our taillight wire. A little long still, but that will go to the taillight, and then I will just tie these two together because these are going to be our lighting ones. And then we might actually tee off of this. So basically I'll connect one terminal here to a 2-prong connector for the headlight as well. It shouldn't be too bad. So I'll fish one wire up to this headlight as well, just because I got all the wiring stuff out. No horn, no auxiliary lighting other than headlight, taillight. It's about as simple as it gets. But that's all we really want. I don't need more than that. Only other thing is there is a little plastic panel. This little guy. When we get to it, I'll try and reinstall all of this stuff back on here if it'll fit. I don't know if it's going to clear with the intake and stuff on here. Well, let's see, that's backwards anyway. Maybe we'll get lucky. Cable can drop through there, get the wiring out of the way. It's trying to pinch itself just like that. Much better. That I'm okay with. It gives me enough room on the brake cable. Keeps that a little bit cleaner there. And now we don't have any ugly wires. So all of this will loop in down here. Here's our lighting circuit. We'll clean that up, obviously. But, yeah. I like that. It's definitely a little bit cleaner. Now we just have the one brake lever, but all contained. I'm not going to mess with trying to get the throttle cable to fit through there. That one doesn't bother me that much. And these all get dropped into the little slotted triple tree. So there we have it. Now we have a wired bike and a sparking bike. So that's the wiring job. The only thing left is going to be, I need to make a little ground jumper from the headlight. Oh no, it's already grounded out on the housing. Winning. So that'll wrap this one up. Quick little wiring job until we get the regulator. So I know we're jamming away on this, lots of different stuff, and I know you guys are probably sick of the moped, but we're getting so close. Minus the actual motor. Really should have just started with that and then it'd be done. But tedious things are done. Wiring's done, brakes are done. Throttle cable's the only cable we got left to hook up. And I want to wait till we get the spacers and stuff and all that put back on. Then we got to pop this cover off. Cable comes off really easy, so it's not like that's a hard thing to do. But pop this off, put the gasket in there, gasket the motor, put the piston and rings on. So that'll be tomorrow or later today, depending on how that plays out. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things. Back to Harley's later, but it's snowing outside. There's still snow on the ground. And those are on pause for a little bit. See you tomorrow.